Well, welcome back 7 Days to Die fans. This is Zith, and this is the third video in the tutorial series on how to create the new Gen 3 characters that are compatible with vanilla and EAC compatible. So in the first video, we showed you how to use the project file. The second one, we reviewed this hierarchy here on the references on the standard nurse ragdoll. So today we want to actually go and try to make a new zombie using that. Now, it's going to be impossible to duplicate this exactly, and the reason for that is TFP throws in a few extra child objects like roll, left arm roll, and so on and so forth. Fortunately, that is not critical. It's really the major components that are important. And I'm going to give you an example of a mix ammo rigged character, and we'll do that in a second. This one here is zombie female, which in the instructions showed you how to download that, and I'm just going to turn this one off real quick. And you see it's untextured. That's not important. But basically, if you compare these rigs here, you'll see that there's a thing called mix ammo hips, mix ammo rig : hips, and that relates to hips. And left upper leg has this prefix on it, and it relates to left upper leg. So you're going to see it's almost identical. So it's a straight compatible rig. The mix ammo rig is straight compatible with TFP. Kind of makes you go, but it is what it is. And so what we're going to do is make this a little more compatible in this video. Before we get to that point, there are other videos on doing this, but I wanted to show mix ammo really quickly. Mix ammo is this, you log into this program called mix ammo, and you see mixammo.com. And it allows you to upload a character. Now, I just uploaded this character here, but basically you take any FBX file that you have. Some of them are compatible, some aren't, but you basically drag into this box and it will rig the character for you. And when it's done, you will have this character rigged. What's critical to this entire process, and the reason why I'm taking this step, is before you go ahead and click on animations and do anything to this, stop, go to download, and download format Unity, FBX for Unity, T-pose. The other option is original pose. We don't want that. And then download that. And what you need to do that is this becomes for that character that you're going to then later on add animations to. You're having a reference T-pose, which is critical for the whole humanoid process. You're going to reference this original download when you later on bring down new animations, and you want to make those animations compatible. You will reference the avatar that's in this T-pose. So that might be a little too much for some of you right now, but just, I want you to have that memory that you need to have this T-pose available in Unity later on. All right, we don't need it right now, so I'm going to make this all go away and get back here. All right, so let's say I've done that, and I've downloaded this zombie female here with the mix ammo rig already done on it, just like you would if you had exported that T-pose and dragged that .fbx into Unity and dragged it over here. You'd be exactly where we're at. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more compatible. All right, so if we look up here, we notice that the first thing on the rig is the mix ammo org hips. All right. TFP has another parent above hips called origin. That's really important. The code looks for that, so we need to have a child. We also need to have a place to put a special tag, and I'll cover that in a bit. So let's go ahead and make this a bit more compatible. We're going to have to add some objects. So you can go ahead and just on the parent here, click it, right-click it, all right, and you want to create, basically create an empty, and then we're going to click on that and rename it origin. All right, and there it is. And we're going to drag that up and make sure that that's hanging off the top parent. All right. Now, a good thing to do here is get it done early. I forget, but it'll warn you. Unpack the prefab. All right. If you don't unpack a prefab, you make changes on it. It's not necessarily going to save all those changes, which is really annoying. It's a new thing they have. So unpack it first. All right, and it turns it this black color. So now we're good to go. We've added that. Now we drag that up, all right, and now that is now one of, you see, if you follow this line down, these four objects are hanging under the zombie female. Great. Now what we have to do is grab this rig here at the hips, grab it at the hips and drag it down and attach it to the origin. All right. So now you see it's looking a bit more like this here, right? We also need to put this footsteps child under the origin. So again, you can click on the origin, right click and create empty. Click on it so you can change the name and type in footsteps. Capitalization matters, so get it exactly right. And then just drag it up onto the origin there, all right, in case it didn't put it. Sometimes when I make these things, it just tosses it under, and just make sure that's in the right place. So now we have this there. The other important thing is you notice that down here we have a thing called collider. And collider has a few special tags on, but this collider is what's used for when it collides with, say, vehicles. So we're going to reproduce that. The easiest way, though, I wanted to show you one of the things. Remember with those keystrokes. So I'm going to click on this one, hold the control key down and hit C. And, well, actually, I'm going to use Control D. That works just as well. So I'm going to duplicate it. The only thing with the duplication is it adds an extra one to it. And then you can just basically take that and drag that down here. And so it's put there, and then just rename and get rid of the one. That's maybe the easiest way for most folks to do it rather than the copy paste. So let's do that, all right? And you notice when you did that with the duplicate, it already put the tags on for you. That's a real handy way to do it because later on we're going to be copy and pasting some stuff. We're going to use the duplicate because it'll retain all of that metadata on that particular object. So now we have it pretty much set up the way we want, but the names aren't really right. Now, I think it will work with these names like that, but the problem is that you're going to have to go and make another physics.xml to match that. And when I tried this a few times, things didn't work out right, and I didn't know if the colon was a problem, so I just said, screw it, let's just do this right and make it more compatible. So that's what we're going to do. Your mileage may vary. Feel free to find a shortcut on this and teach me all about it. So how do we change this? Well, the first thing you do is take this here, and I'm going to go just pick zombie female. I think we picked it here. It was right here. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this into here and make a prefab. There it is right there, right? Right click on it and say show and explore. That's going to pop up here, the zombie female prefab. Right click on that, edit with Notepad. All right, and if you have another text editor, use that. Here we are here. If we go and search here, I'm going to type in mix ammo rig colon. You see, they're going to be all the way through here. All right. What we want to do is get rid of that. So we go to replace that with nothing, and replace all. And now you see it's gotten rid of that, right? We save that. And once we save that, and close this out, and we click over here, look at that. Now does it look a lot more close to this, right? Origin, hips, left upper leg, left foot, yep. So now we're very, very close to this reference architecture just with a couple of strokes. But there's a problem. Once you rename the rig and you change all this, the avatar that's part of this FPX fit has all of the old references. So we need a new avatar based on this new thing. So this is where we have to now go. Click on that and right click and then say export to FBX. So when we go that, you get this little pop-up screen here, export to FBX. You can export it anywhere within the project. We'll just do it to the root of the asset file. The name, you don't have to mess with any of this stuff there. It can be exported to ASCII or binary. I think Blender likes binary. I'll leave it at ASCII for now. It doesn't, for the purposes of this, it doesn't really matter. And these you can keep all the same. You don't really need compatible naming. Get you and check that and leave that. So it looks kind of like that. And then just click export. And it should, boom, there. It should have done that. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and get rid of this. Just make that go away. All right. So it successfully exported it. Now I believe that in the root asset folder, there's the new one that's right there. We told it to go to the root asset folder. So here it is, all right? Now we're going to take this one and we're going to kind of start all over. We're going to drag it over here. All right, open it back up, and it's all the same. All right. Before we do that, though, I'm jumping. See, I've done this so many times. I was like skipping ahead. Go to here. Let's look at this real quick. All right. You notice that when you do the FBX export, it's still a generic rig. We want to move to humanoid. So at this point, we want to go ahead and check on that and check the humanoid and apply. So now we have the right bone structure and converted it to humanoid. It'll generate an avatar for it. We can click this configuration. Go ahead and save that. We'll click the configuration, and you notice it's now gone and assigned hips to hips, spine to spine, all of these names to the mandatory bones. We can check the head. The head is correct. The left hand is correct, and so on. Everything's perfect. You don't really need to do this part. I just wanted to show you there, because sometimes when you convert something, there's going to be one bone off or whatever, and you'll need to come in here, fix it. Another thing in here that's important is the pose. If you click Enforce T pose and apply, if you didn't have it, if you've had it like in an A pose, or, which is how this is an A pose, or something else, it will make sure that it forces it to T pose for greater compatibility. When you're all done, you click Done, and we're all set here. So we'll go back over to this guy now, and we bring him, you can bring this back down like that, and bring this zombie female back in over here, and we'll open that up, okay, and I like to expand all these things. I'll show you why in a few minutes. And TFP uses 3 spines. Mixamo uses spine 1, spine 2. Some of them have an extra spine. Doesn't really matter for compatibility. And pardon me, I'm getting a little cold here, so the voice is going to go. And all set. Now the only thing I didn't do in here, and because we're not making a bandit, is if you notice on the TFP rig, and I just thought of this, if we go to the right and left hand, you'll notice in their rig they have a thing called right hand, under the right hand, right weapon. There's also a left weapon. That's the point that on the bandit class, it will auto-attach weapons to this child. So if you're going to make a bandit, in that process before when I was adding bones, go ahead and add a right and a left weapon child bone before you do that export. But we're doing zombies right now, so in case I ever forget to tell you that, I told you. So here we are now. We've got this basic rig all done here, and it's pretty compatible. Let's go ahead and see how compatible it is. If we go to animation, you're not going to see anything. So we need to go to the top parent here, zombie female, and you notice that it has that new avatar that we created, and it's set for root motion, which we need. These are all, leave these all default. We need to attach a controller. So I'm going to click the little dot there, and you notice in the package I've given you the vanilla zombie controller. So I've now added that on. So now if I go to animation, you notice there's the animation. It's fully compatible. It's now the hundreds of animations that the game uses all will work on this new character. Let's test it. I'm going to click for an idle, and there's the standard zombie idle. And if we want it to dig, which I know you all love, there it goes. Okay, so all the animations are compatible. You can see those animations in this rat's nest. There's 3 layers to the TFP controller. I'm not going to cover this in this video, but basically there's a base layer that has all of the movements, and then you have override layer, which basically has the attacks, and not all the attacks, but the full body attacks. And then on this all the panes are all in basically this layer. So each controller, this is the zombie controller, there's a player controller, there's a controller for all the different animals have their own controllers. We'll cover that in a different video, but just so you now have full compatibility with everything happens in this sequence will now happen on your new zombie. All right, let's go back to the scene here. Turn off the preview, so the zombie's back in T-pose. We can bring this back down. Console will clear that. Okay, here we are. Next thing we need to do, we've done that. We've checked, put the controller on, we checked. Let's go ahead and we need a ragdoll on this person. So how to do the ragdoll, I covered that in another video, but basically you go to Game Object, 3D, and Ragdoll. And there it is, basically the ragdoll right there. Now why I expanded this early on is to save a little bit of time. The pelvis is actually hips, so we just take hips and you drag that over, and the left upper leg is actually the left hips. The left leg is the left knee, and the left foot is, oddly enough, the left foot. We do the same thing for the right side, right upper leg, and the right leg, and the right foot. Left arm is, don't use the shoulder, use the left arm for left arm, and the forearm is the elbow. Same thing on the right arm, and the right forearm, middle spine, easy enough. I use this one. And it's kind of interesting. TFP has a little different approach on this thing, but to me, you got spine 1, spine 2, that's the middle spine, and I've always used that. I think you could probably use spine 2 and get away with it, but it just doesn't matter. And head goes to head. Now, the mass is important. It's got to match what you do in XML. So this guy, I'm just going to put 150. That's a good number. You'll notice the big brutes are 200 or so, and the little skinny people might be down around 120 or 90. Long as this matches XML, you're good. Strength is an unused thing. You'll never use that, and leave the forward alone, and then just hit create. All right. Now, if I click on the top there, you notice all the ragdoll components are here. The ragdoll wizard does a couple of good things, but you have to adjust the upper chest, the head, the 2 forearms, and tidy up the legs a little bit. It's a pretty quick process. Let's go ahead and start with the hips is good. So I'm going to go to spine 1 real quick and bring it up. What you do is you come over to the edit collider, click that. That gives you some little dots, and you can find the dot and bring it up so it's just right at the top of the shoulders there. Or you can even bring it up a little further. All right? And that one's done. We'll do the head next. And click on the head, edit the collider, and you can bring that up a little bigger, and make sure, you want to make sure that there's no gaps between your colliders. Otherwise, people are going to get pissed when they shoot a bullet and it goes right through the entity. So if anything, make it a little bit bigger, but make sure you cover the entire thing. So now if I come back, you notice there's a tiny gap there. So I'm just going to revisit the spine again, and I'm going to bring that up till it just overlaps just a little bit. All right. You can also go this way. You notice that there's a little excess on the back, so I'm going to tighten that up a little bit and just bring the chest out a little. Now, I'm kind of OCD about this. You don't have to, but again, if you want your entities done right, do this. So let's do the forearm, left forearm real quick. And a couple things here. Bring it down. I also bring this in because I bring it into about the middle of the palm, because otherwise when they close their fingers up, the collider is going to be hanging out there. And usually they have it there. So I bring it in about there, just ballpark it. All right, we're going to do the same thing for the right forearm. Again, bring that up, bring that down, bring that in a little bit. And so coming back, you see that looks pretty good. We could do the upper arms. I like to be generous with those and kind of leave them the way they are. So it looks like we have a little overlaying there, so that's good. So let's do the legs. I don't like how much they overlap, so we will do the up leg real quick and bring that in a little bit. Check it from the side, looks good. Then we'll just do the left leg below real quick. Bring it in, and there. A bit more. Okay, do the same thing on the right side. And why can't I see the legs? There it is. Edit collider. Pressure of doing a video. Okay. And then down legs, lower leg. There. And tighten that up. All right. I also I don't like it to be too close to the ground. It's probably not a big issue, but I want to make sure the collider doesn't go under the ground. And with the game being glitchy and stuff, I like to give it a little extra room. So Right leg is good, and let's just do the left leg real quick and just bring that up a little bit so we make sure it never clips into the ground. Ankles is good. We'll click back on the top parent, look at it. Looks pretty sharp. All right, so now we have a ragdoll and colliders on all this. But we got to tag them. It doesn't work without tags. So let's go ahead and start at the top with the tagging. All right, the origin, important. It needs to have the E biped root. Okay, that's entity, biped root. All right, that is assigned. Leave the layers going to be a default on everything except for the large collider. Oh, yeah, that's another interesting thing I noticed. You know, we put that collider on this thing, and then when we exported it out, it looks like we might, oh, no, there it is. Okay, it is there, but it is untagged. I've noticed that when you have tagged things and then you export the FBX and bring it back in, wipes out all your tags. So keep your tagging till after that part of the process is done. So on this collider here, just to go back, we have to put the large entity collider, large entity blocker, on the large entity blocker layer. All right, so that one is done. We had that before, but it erased it, so just making note of that. If you don't have that set up right, and you don't have the biped root set up right, those two things are needed for vehicle collision. All right, going back to this. So we did the origin, and we got EP biped root there. The hips is going to be tagged body, entity, body. The left upper leg is going to be tagged left leg, and that is somewhere left leg, right? And then the left leg is actually tagged left lower leg, left lower leg. And for some reason they stuck it way under the gore. Yep, left lower leg. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing for the right leg. EPB right leg, and then the right leg, right lower leg, EP right lower leg. You don't do the feet. Spine one. Basically, you're tagging anything that has a ragdoll component on it. Okay, so here we have all this stuff. It needs a tag, and spine is again a body tag, EPB body. We're going to go next to the arm, the left arm, and that is left arm, and left lower arm. This is a bit tedious, but unfortunately, I figured out a better way to automate this part of the process. The left lower arm. Next is the head. And that simply is EP head. And then we're down to the right arm. EP right arm. And right lower arm. You guys can, you know, if you're going to skip, this would have been a good part to slide forward. But, you know, you're always going to miss something when you're skipping. So right lower arm. And all of this doesn't need to be tagged. So we should now have everything tagged. What we don't have yet is we haven't added in the gore. Now the gore is, the best way to do that is to go to the reference architecture and copy the gore components. All right. So you see here we have the upper leg gore, right? And if you trace all the way up, it's basically attached under the hips. Let me go ahead and do that. See, it's right under the hips. All right. It's important to hang these new children off of the correct thing. So I'm going to go that, and I'm going to press Control D, add a copy there. I'm going to do this one while I'm up at Control D. Now we have a couple new ones. So I'm going to drag this down, and I'm going to put it on the hips, and that was the left, and so the right, and I'm going to hang that one off of the hips, right? Just to double check, drag them up, make sure they are actually on the hips. Looks good. And then get rid of these incidentals because it is reading the child. So let's clean that up, and so it matches the master one. So we've done that one. And that's basically, if you look at that now, because we did a Control D, you notice it already has tagged it with the right upper leg gore. And the same thing with the left, it's already been tagged. So that's the beauty of the Control D. You just have to make sure you get things, you know, on the right bones. And I should have wrote all of those bones and where those things go. I think I had notes somewhere, but you can do it with just basically eyeballing it. Let me see. All right, so we now have the upper and the upper leg gores off of the hips. Next, we want to do the lower leg gore, and that will hang off the upper legs. So we have to find. We go to drop down these leg cons. You notice it's right there. So we're going to Control D this, and do the same thing for the other gore. I want copies of that. And remember, I said they're going to hang off of the upper legs. So we're going to drag the left one down to the left upper leg, attach it there. And then the right lower leg gore we're going to do to the right upper leg. All right, and then just rename those. And this one here. And this is the most tedious part of the process, but it's got to be done. And so these already inherited those gore tags. The next thing to do there is we need to do the head off the last spine. So let's go ahead and find the spine. Head gore, and as you can see, that head gore is right off of spine 3. So we're going to duplicate that with a Control D, and we're going to drag this down to the last spine. Now you notice it had 3 spines. It had spine 1, spine 2, and spine 3, total of 4. We only have 3, so we're going to pull it off this last one. Basically the thing between the shoulder and the last spine. All right, and that's the head gore. And that one's done. So that's going to leave us with the arm gore here, the upper arm gore. We have to come up here and find the under the spine now. We're all done with the legs. Under the left shoulder, we see we have the left upper arm gore. Do that and open up the other shoulder. And then you have, oh, did I just, yeah, left upper arm gore. Where's the right shoulder? Right upper arm gore. There it is. And duplicate that. Okay, those go off the shoulders. So the left upper arm gore goes down to the left shoulder, and the right upper arm gore goes down to the right shoulder. All right, and we'll clean those up. Yeah, this does seem a little tedious, but it was a lot more tedious trying to figure this shit out without anything to go by. So be comforted with that. And the last thing we know is the lower arm gores. Okay, so where's the lower arm gore go? Right, it goes off of the right arm. Let's go ahead and collapse that. You see, go ahead, it hanging down. I don't see. There it is, right lower arm gore. All right, so we're going to duplicate that. And again, that hangs off the right arm, like the lower arm hangs off the right arm. So I'm going to move this down to the right arm. And then up here we have the left. And bring that down, lower left arm gore, Control D that, and bring that down. Finally, and this was the last one, the right arm, did I just do left arm? Left lower arm gore. Okay, there we go. There's a little confusing part. Once you get the hang of it, you kind of know where these things hang. Okay, let's check our work. If I click on the first of our gore tags, it shows you where it's going to put that glob of bloody red flesh. All right, so if you click on that, and I'm going to use the alternate key to go around, you notice it's a little bit off because this guy has skinnier legs apparently than the nurse did. So all you have to do is make sure you're on the gore object you want to move, and just kind of slide it to above the knee. All right, a little too far in. So there he is real quick. We're going to do the other one. It's a little too far out. I'm just going to move that over and tidy it up a little bit. So those are the location where it's going to put the stump on when it blows the lower leg off. It should be near the knees, and it's probably a little high, but you can always come back and adjust that later on. Without a texture in it, it's a little hard to see exactly where the knee point is, but I won't tie you up there. So let's do that for each of those real quick. The forearm gore should be right where the elbow, basically above the elbow, because it's going to stump it at the elbow. That doesn't look too bad. And the upper arm gore should be right where the shoulder is. That's not too bad. Maybe just go down just a little bit. And we'll check these others real quick. And that's too high. And yeah. All right. And again, once you see them in game, you say, oh man, that looks crap. Oh, I missed this one. You got to have these things without the little extra duplicate numbers on it. All right. Right upper arm gore looks pretty good. Bring that down a little bit. I'm holding the Alt key down to rotate if you haven't done that. So I'm basically using the left mouse button and holding the Alt down to be able to do this quick rotation. And again, the upper arm gore, we did that one. The leg gore, this is above the hips. That looks good. And this one looks pretty good. If the characters are about the same height, these will be right. So now we have all those done. They're all tagged. Everything is tagged the way it should be. And we're basically ready to go. We can tag this an enemy if we want here. That ensures that when you do kill all, it's going to kill this guy. I like to basically tag it. But I would be careful. If you're making non-zombies, you're making like NPCs and stuff. Sometimes you don't want them to be bad. So I leave that off and let the XML do the override on that. If you put it basically is enemy in there, it's the same thing as doing that. So it's not required. Some people, I know early on we were doing it, I clicked always animate. That means it will fully animate when it's off camera. There's a hit frame per second hit, small one on that. But since these things seem to be just fine when they head out of the area, so leave that just by default. Update mode's normal, all of that's fine. You notice this little box overrides. That's basically saying we really haven't saved any of that into a prefab yet. All right, there's two ways of doing that. You could update that, but we haven't actually saved this thing out as a prefab yet. So that's the way you want to do it. I'm going to just save my finished character into the root of this folder here so I know. So basically, take this thing here. We want to give it a name that we essentially can call. Doesn't matter what the name is. I don't like spaces in names, so I'm going to call it zombie test female. All right, give it a unique name, because that's going to need to be when you get the XML statement to call it. You need to have a name in there. For the new character authors, I generally recommend that you put some type of identifiable postfix on the character so people know, oh, that was made by Zith because of the X, and so I'm going to bug him about his crappy work, and maybe he'll fix it. So if others, you have some way that people know that you made it, so we can track down, who to go ask about that. So when you're done, just go ahead and save that into the folder. It'll say you want to create a prefab variant. This is the original. We haven't done anything yet, so click on original prefab, and basically there it is. This is now ready to export into the game. Those of you who already know how to do that, you right-click, build monthly function, and save it. In this case, I'm going to save it into the humans. No, that would be dumb because it's a zombie. Into the zombie pack, into the resource folder, and you give it a name, and this might be zombie test female. You can name it anything you want because that's the other part of the call statement. Save that, and it will go ahead and do that. The part I skipped is, of course, before you would export it, you'd want to texture it. I'm not even sure I loaded the textures in. I might have. Let's go ahead and check real quick. It should have separate textures for each of these files here. Let's know. I think that's it. Body, eyes. Yeah, we can try it real quick. Yeah, that might be the one. And close. Yeah, it might be so and so. So you basically could put the textures on. Now when you go to the buttons here, you can open this thing up, and it should already fill all that stuff in for you. It uses cutout because you can see through. So that's enough of that. Oh, the other thing I tend to do is check the GPU instancing box, because if you have like 10 of these on the screen at the same time, it'll help the performance of the game. So check that as well. And now you can basically just go ahead and go back to the enter things here. You can do a couple of things here. If you've unpacked this whole thing, all you have to do is come up to here and then click on, if there's anything, there'll be, oops, I'm sorry, what did I just do? Click on and you'll see if there's been any changes. What I like to do, frankly, is I basically just delete this out and drag it back and make a new one. And that makes absolute sure that everything has been changed. They'll also basically you'll get a thing called overrides, and you can click there. You can click and apply to all. But if you don't unpack it first, it will not apply them, and it just won't tell you, and then you'll have a bad day. So if you want to be really sure, I like to delete the old one out and drag it in. Either way works, as long as you unpack it. Okay, so I did a quick test in game, and notice made a couple of omissions that I wanted to cover before I finish up the video. I did go ahead and do the XML for it. I made a little character called Zombie Test, extended it off the game Zombie Nurse. Left other thing, tags don't inherit, so make sure you put tags in there. I gave it a generic hand item from my template file, but any zombie have a hand. Gave it its speeds, but here's the critical thing, as all of you know, is that Zombie Test Female is what I saved. The export name in there, and then the character name in there was Zombie Test Female _X. So that's how I got it in the game. What I noticed is it was fine walking around, shooting it, ragdoll, did everything you expect to do. And then I ran it over to 4x4 and I passed right through it. It's like, ah, crap, what did I forget? Well, let's check. So we know that two things are critical for vehicle collision. The first one is that we have the right tag on the origin, EP by root. That we did right. And we got to have that collider hanging off here. So there it is here. And it needs to be tagged large entity blocker. We did that. But what didn't I do? Stick the damn collider on this child. So I have to add component and go to physics and a capsule collider. All right, that's what you want. You want to edit that collider and grab the little dot and basically pull it up. You want the collider to go basically from the calves. You can look at the zombie reference one, but they have basically up above the calf collider, and I lost my thing there, so let me go ahead and move that up a little bit there, and you got to bring this in. Yep. Now see, I want to make sure that's all 0, 0, 0 here. I dragged it. I misdragged. You have to hit edit. See, it's good to know the mistakes, and that's what Guppy would say. I want to know your mistakes. Okay, there you go. Position it around the middle of the head and right around, the up above the ankles in this big area there, and then bring these things in to the width of the object there, and that looks pretty good. You could tighten it up a little bit. Remember, you're dealing with a cylinder, so you get too tight, it's going to basically, not be true on the sides. That looks about right, okay? And so now when we run over it, it's actually got something to collide with. It's one thing to have the child and one thing to have the tags, but you got to have a collider. So that's what I missed. The other thing I missed was there's a thing called extends. Now each mesh here, that's the body mesh, has this thing called an extends around it. What is that? That is basically what the camera references when it looks at the entity. The problem is, if we were to get up close and personal with this, you would see the mesh disappear if our player character got too close, because this box is not extending out far enough. So what you do is you click on Edit Bounds, and you get the same dots. Bring it out quite a ways. Not crazy, but I use it to do about this much. And because it's going to be laying down sometimes on the ground when it's dead, you also want to bring it out around the character like that. All right? And check the width. That's usually not too bad, and the feet should be a little bit below, because again, when it's laying down. So now when we're here, if it does one of those long lunges, it won't disappear on it. You got to do that for each mesh. If TFP combines the meshes, and I have a tool that I do too, I combine them into one mesh, but since it's not a free tool, we won't cover that. The bottoms is the same way. You basically just need to bring that out. I'm just going to do this real quickly just to show you. But like that, and just go down to each. The collider, you don't have an extends on. You don't have to worry about it. The eyelashes, I'm going to skip that, but you pull those out because otherwise the eyelashes will. The same thing with the eye. But you do it for all those. You click on that, you bring that out, and then when you go ahead and save it, the meshes won't disappear on you when you're real close. Okay, as far as I know, that's all I missed, and with that, we'll wrap it up. And the next video, we'll probably look into doing some conversions of Gen 2 characters, and save you a little time on that process. All right, thanks.